So I want to take a look at trying to deploy a Netlify CMS based website to GitLab because GitLab supports implicit authentication. What this allows us to do is actually authenticate our Netlify CMS application to the GitLab backend without having a third-party server that runs in the middle. So previously I made a video tutorial for the GitHub authentication and it required spinning up a Heroku app that had the authentication server in it. This won't require that step in the middle, so it's kind of cool. In order to get the setup started, I'm using a static site generator called Cobalt. It's built on Rust. If you don't have this installed, you can do it in a couple easy steps. First thing you need to do is install Rust. You can do that with this curl command here. And when you have Rust installed, then you can just run another curl command to actually install the Cobalt static site generator. Once you have all that done, you can come and you can make a new directory. So I'm going to make a directory called demo. I'm going to change directories into that directory. And then you can run Cobalt in it, and that will create a new project. So if you list the files in here, you can see a new Cobalt project has been created. So if I run the Cobalt serve command, you can see it really quickly pops up and has a server listening on this localhost port 3000. So I switch back to my website. You can see that I have the basic website running up here. There's not too much going on with the website, but we're not too concerned with that because really we're focused on setting up the Netlify CMS admin panel. So in order to do that, we have to do a couple things here. So let's take a look at some of the instructions for adding Netlify CMS to our project. You notice that Netlify CMS includes a couple of files in our project. So there's an admin folder, and then there's an index.html file and a config.yaml file. So we can set this up manually. If I make dir admin, and I can actually, let's just open this up in NeoVim. We can take a look here. So if I'm on the file browser here on the left-hand side, I can add a new node here. So I'm going to add a child node, and I'm going to call this index.html. So again, that's coming from over here. So we're getting the index.html file. I'm going to add that. And then I'm also going to add a config.yml file. So let's add another child node here. So config.yaml. So now we have two files. And let's just add the boilerplate here. So in our index.html file, I'm going to come down and I'm actually going to grab what they specify in the Netlify CMS documentation, so I can actually come here and just grab this and use this. Essentially what this is doing is really just pointing over to a CDN that is powering the Netlify CMS. If we wanted to do a custom implementation, we could actually create our own version and host it locally with our site. I actually have another video that shows how to do that, so feel free to browse through some of my past videos if you want to know how to do that. But for now, it's fine to use the standard Netlify CMS release. So that's our index.html file. Now our config file, it needs a couple of different things here. So let's look at the configuration page here. And we'll notice that, actually, if I come over here, these are the important things that we're going to need to add to our YAML file. So we need a backend stipulation here. So we want to make sure the backend says GitLab. We want to have a repo owner and repo name. We want to tell the auth type. In this case, it's implicit. And then we're going to add our app ID once we've created one. So the first thing I need to do after this is create a repo for this to live at. So I'm going to switch over to GitHub, or GitLab rather. I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to call this project demo, and it's a private repository, and I'm going to create this project. Okay, so now we have the demo project, and you can see it's at the namespace up here, static sites. This is the group on GitLab, and the project's demo. So if I copy this, I can put this over in the repo section, and we'll just save this for now. Great. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add our code that we have locally to our repository. So since we have an existing folder, what we can do is we can git initialize and add the files and then make a commit and push it up. So let's do that real quick. So if we git init, you can now see that we have a git status that says we have a bunch of untracked files. We can add all these files. We can commit these. Just call it the initial commit. And now you can see that we have a history here. So great. I want to add another file to this. So I want to add a GitLab CI file. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to allow us to have the GitLab CI runner build the container that deploys the GitLab pages. So the Cobalt.org documentation has a quick script here. So you want to create a .gitlab-ci.yaml file. So we'll do that. Let's edit that file real quick. And what we can do is just copy and paste this information into that file. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the release so you can see that the newest release here is 0.15.4 for Cobalt. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to update the Cobalt version specified here to use the .4 minor version. I'm going to save this. And so essentially what this is telling GitLab is when we push our master branch, it's only running on the master branch as specified down here, we want to go and create a Docker container essentially that installs Rust and Cobalt and everything we need there. And it actually goes and uses the Cobalt command to build a folder called public, and then eventually we are going to push that public folder out to the GitLab pages interface so we can actually see this website built and displayed publicly. So let's save that. Let's add this to our Git, and let's commit this as add CI. Great. So now if we look at our history, we can see we have our initial commit and we have the add CI commit there. And if we go back to our GitLab setup here, just notice that we've initialized it, we've added the commands. We need to add this remote so we know where we can actually push this. So I'm going to add remote. We're going to call it origin, and it's our static sites demo site. And now that it's added, we can actually push the master branch up to that remote. So let's do that. Git push origin master. Okay. So if we reload the repository page, you'll notice that this is starting to build. This is now has our code that we had locally on the repository that's at the remote. And you'll notice that we have a commit pending here. So essentially, this is our CI runner. It's running a pipeline, and you can notice that it's trying to run a build. And you can actually kind of watch it build in real time here. So it's pulling down the Docker image that we specified. It's running some commands. And we'll see if this succeeds or not. So looks like it's downloading a bunch of stuff. It's probably downloading Rust and the Cobalt project. It's making the public directory that we specified, and it looks like the job succeeded. And you can notice we have the little check mark in the favicon up here, and it gives us a pass symbol over here. So we actually have this building now. So if we were to go to our pages section, we have this congratulations, our pages are being served under this demo here, this demo, the static sites.gitlab.io/demo site. And if we click this, it typically takes a little while for this to actually start building. So if you reload, oh, that was faster than I expected it to work. So here's our site. This is now available for anybody to look at. It's the same site that we had built locally here. So we're in pretty good shape. If we go back to our local site here and we see the admin screen, it looks like we don't have our server running anymore. So if we ran our Cobalt serve command and we reload this, So we have some errors with our config.yaml file. If you take a look here, we're going to have a very similar thing going on here. Okay, and this gives us a little bit more directions about what we need to fix. So we're missing some required properties here. So we're missing a media folder, a media library, and a collections folder. So let's go to our documentation here. So we have some information, I think, about adding. Okay, so we can add a media library like this. So if we copy this snippet of code, we can add that to our config.yaml file. So let's, again, open this project in NeoVim, and let's go to our admin folder, and let's open up config.yaml, and let's add a couple more of these designations here. So come here, we'll add our media library. That's one thing that we had that we needed to add. What's some of the other things we needed? We needed a media folder, so we needed to specify where our files are going to live. So let's just add media folder, and let's say that we want our files to live at assets, images. You can put whatever kind of folder name you want there. And then we also need a baseline collections section. So I believe we can get a snippet of what that might look like. Okay, here's an example. It's not very full out here, but this should work. And actually, I have another demo site, and let's add that. Okay, so we add a fuller version of what the collections are, and essentially we're saying, hey, we have a blog. It's called blog. Here's the folder where we want it to live, and here's what the URL pattern is going to be for it, and then here are some fields that we want added to it. So these are the CMS fields that will be available to us. And the last thing I'm going to do up here is I'm going to add a branch here, and I'm going to make it the master branch. So I want the Netlify CMS to commit directly to our master branch. You can do different workflows for drafts and things like that, so it creates a pull request that needs to be approved. For this instance, I'm not going to worry about that. And then from here, what I need to do, just to finish this off, is I need to add an app ID. So basically, we have to create an OAuth app in GitLab, and then we have to use that ID over here. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. If I come to GitLab, you can see I'm under my user account here, and let me just show you quickly how to get here. So if you come to your user in the upper right-hand corner, and you go to your settings, and you come down, and if you hover over on the left-hand side, you'll see this little icon that's a little grid that says applications. Click on that, and you can create a new application. So let's call this Netlify CMS demo. And what we want our redirect URL to be is actually this URL where our content is being served from. So we want this admin, we want our GitLab site with our admin folder here, and we want to put that over in the redirect URI section. So add that, and then the last thing we need to do on this is give it the API permissions here. So once you've done that, you can save your application. It's going to give you some of this information. So one of the things we need to grab is this application ID, copy that to our clipboard, come back over here and just replace this your app ID with the actual application ID, come in, save that, and now let's add this to our site, and let's commit it and say add app ID to CMS, and let's push this back up to GitLab. Okay, that is run. We push the master branch. If we come back over to our GitLab site and we go back to our project, you'll notice that our commit is pending here. We can click on this again. You can see that the pipelines are queuing up to run. This will kind of just go for a little bit. Usually the build is pretty quick once it kicks off, and then sometimes it takes a little longer to actually kick it over to the public-facing website, but you'll see here that now this is starting to run. This should go pretty quick. Usually takes about 45 seconds, I believe, with this many pages and using Cobalt as the static site generator, which is pretty fast compilation time. We'll let that run for a minute. Okay, that succeeded. And then basically we just got to come over here and wait for this to get the new version of the code. And sometimes this will take a few minutes to actually come through. We should see that at the very least the error messages should change. If we have done everything correctly, we'll see a login screen. So let's give this a couple reloads and reload this for a little bit. And sometimes this will take a few minutes, so I'll speed it up on my end so you don't have to wait through it. Okay, so you can see that actually logged me in. So I'm already logged in here because I did that previously, but this is what the login, I'll just log out real quick so I can show you. So once your site is loading with the new configuration, you should be able to go to the admin panel here, and it'll give you this button to log in with GitLab. And I've already authenticated, and I've told it that I give permissions to the app to let me log in, so it's going to do it automatically. You might get another pop-up screen here, but I'll click this. Okay, yes, so this is what it is. You'll get something like this. You'll have to authorize the application Netlify CMS demo, and I'll authorize it here, and then they'll redirect me back to the CMS. And this is what it looks like generally. So you have a section here. We only have blogs, right? But we could add a new blog, and you can see that these are the fields that I had added just as like demo content. Let's say demo title. You can pick a date. There's like a date picker here like this that updates. You can choose an image. So we could come to our local file system and we could go to our desktop and we could choose something like this. Nextcloud image and add it. Great. We could add a rating. We'll say rating is 4 and lorem ipsum text here. And then we could come here and we could actually, we could remove the preview if we want to look at the editing screen a little more. But we could come through here and we could publish now. It says the entry is saved. Come back, you can see we have our new demo blog post listed here in the CMS. We could change the view here to a grid view. And we could add a lot more options. So we could add a bunch more different types of collections. So we could have blog posts, we could have news, we could have events, we could have calendar items. We could have all sorts of different things over here and make all sorts of different types of structured content. And then manage our content this way, which is a really nice lightweight CMS that you can put in front of your static site, and you can edit it right from your static site. So keep in mind that this is the URL for our static website. So if we get out of the admin CMS portion of it, you'll see that our public facing website, which isn't very much in this case, but our public facing website's here. And if we came back over to our project here, you'll notice that the last commit here that was authored 55 seconds ago is the create blog with this slug title here based on what we put into the configuration of the CMS. We could actually come here and we could look at our history, see that this is the most recent commit there, and we could come in and see what was actually changed. So it's all the things that we just basically added at the through the CMS interface there. So that's basically the intro to how you set this up, set up the Netlify CMS with GitLab with the implicit authentication, and that's about all there is to the tutorial. All right, thanks for watching.